Can an EV practically fit into your life without you paying over the odds? Well, that's what the Skoda Elroq is trying to do, and we're going to find out whether it succeeded. I'm Tom Jervis, and you're watching Auto Express. So the Skoda Elroq is here, and it's the smallest EV in Skoda's lineup, sitting below the Enyaq. Now, it's the first model to get Skoda's new modern solid design language, and if you ask me, I think it looks pretty smart. It's not quite as daring as, let's say, rivals like the Kia EV3, but it certainly stands out amongst the crowd, and primarily that is all down to this, the new tech deck front end. Now, you can't see on this car, but what it's got is these LED running lights that kind of run into the centre. Now, these are segmented on top spec models, and speaking of which, you've got a choice. There's SE, SEL, Edition, and then there's also the top of the range sports line model. And if you pick that one, you've also got some larger alloy wheels, which you're undoubtedly going to curb. Anyway, it's not just trim levels you've got to consider, you also have to think about powertrains. So you've got three. You've got the base model, which is a 52 kilowatt hour model with around 230 miles of range. They badge that one the 50. Then you've got what we've got here, which is the mid-spec 60, which has a 59 kilowatt hour battery and around 250 miles of range. Then at the top of the range, you've got the 85, which has a 77 kilowatt hour battery. Don't get why they didn't call it the 80, but whatever. And around 360 miles of range. So that is competing with the top of the table when it comes to this class of car. Now, the Elroq starts from around £30,000 and top models are around £42,000. Just a couple of design traits worth mentioning. You've got these single element LED running lights which sit above the main headlights, and then below that you've got this silver kind of skid plate looking piece. I'm sure it has no off-roading benefit whatsoever, but it does look pretty cool. And on the theme of off-roaders, down the side you've got some SUV style body cladding which hugs these aerodynamic alloy wheels. Of course, the lower down the range you go, the smaller the wheels they are. The top of the range get the biggest wheels, and then coming round the back, it's actually pretty reminiscent of its bigger brother, the Enyaq. Stepping inside, you'll see that it's pretty similar to the bigger Enyaq in here. You've got this sort of two-step dash, and what I will point out is it's all fabric on here. It's not cheap plastic, and then below here you've got this kind of metallic grey design, which I think looks a lot more premium than something like a scratchy piano black plastic. In fact, the only scratchy piano black plastic is on the steering wheel. Speaking of which, the first thing you'll notice is there's only two spokes. Now, while I don't want to advise you away from the highway code's rules of a 10 to 2, holding the bottom here when you haven't got a spoke there is quite nice on a long journey and makes things a little bit more comfortable. But don't tell anyone I said that. Anyway, what I do want to mention are these physical buttons, which are really easy to operate, and it means that you're not making accidental inputs like you would on a touch-sensitive button. And then you've got these scroller wheels here, which feel a little bit like you're turning the lid on a tube of toothpaste. Thumbs down from me. Another thing I do want to mention are the digital dials, which, to be honest, aren't really that configurable. I mean, you can check your driver assistance data and your electric efficiency, but apart from that, it's all pretty basic. Much more configurable, on the other hand, is Skoda's infotainment system, which is really quick to respond to your inputs. And you can configure widgets on there so you can have exactly what you want in one finger press, but it's not perfect. Down here, for example, you've got this kind of touch-sensitive volume slider, which, come on, Skoda, just give us a knob. Don't take that as an outtake. And then down here, you've got touch-sensitive climate controls, which, once again, we could do with a dial, but at least they're in a fixed position. Down here, you've got a place to put your phone, which is a wireless phone charge, and you've got two USB sockets in there. You've got two cup holders here. You've got this space in here of which I'm storing my phone and the camera's case. I'm not sure what else you can put in there. Let us know in the comments what you'd put in this space. But the pièce de résistance, I must say, are these felt-lined door pockets, which feel incredibly posh, and it means if you stick something metal in there, for example, it's not going to rattle around and annoy you on a long journey. Less expensive, on the other hand, are these really cheap feeling door handles. But generally, in here, the interior quality is just as you'd expect, and actually slightly above that of rivals. Just a quick thing before we continue. Did you know that you can now buy and sell your car through Auto Express? We've got decades of trusted experience on hand, so just click the link below to make car selling easy. So, sitting in the back here here and only just a couple of notes. I'm around 5'10½", just to give you some reference. And I've got loads of knee room and actually a decent amount of headroom in here. And now, you know Skoda's sort of families with this car, because in the back of the seats you've got a nice little pocket for a mobile phone, as well as a pocket for other bits and pieces, probably sweet wrappers, let's be honest. In terms of quality back here, it's not that much less than what's in the front. You know, you've got this fabric on the doors, you still have the really, really cheap feeling door handle, unfortunately. But of course you get the same upholstery as well. And you've even got, if I fold that down, a fold down armrest with some cup holders, which is really, really handy for long journeys. One more little thing to mention, there are 2 ISOFIX points in the back here, so if you've got a lot of kids, there's nothing to worry about. There's also one in the front, so if you're bored of your partner and you just want to chuck them in the back and get rid of them for a while, you can do that too. Practicality continues, because if you open the boot, oh, this is not a powered boot, unfortunately, you've got to pay extra for that. It's got quite a lot of space back here. You've got 470 litres to play with, plus you can fold these seats down. Now, that isn't quite as much as what you get in the slightly larger and more expensive Renault Scenic, but it should be just about enough for most families. One thing worth pointing out is you don't have a frunk with this car, unlike some rivals like the Kia EV3, which has a tiny little space at the front, and the more expensive Tesla Model Y, which you can fit a whole small suitcase back there. You don't have one of those, but what you do have, if I fold that back and then fold this back, is a little bit of space where you can store your charging cables. So, what's the Elroq like to drive? Well, like other Skoda models, this prioritises comfort and ease above everything else, which is what most buyers want. What we're particularly impressed, however, is how easy it is to drive around town. The turning circle, for example, is roughly the same as a Mini Cooper, not the Aceman SUV, the Cooper little hatchback, and it makes awkward car park manoeuvres a breeze. Throughout our time with the Skoda Elroq, we averaged around 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which translates to a real-world range of around 200 miles. 50 miles off Skoda's claimed figure, however that is around average for the class. Thankfully though, all models can be charged from around 10 to 80% in roughly 25 minutes, and that's because you get faster charging speeds as you ascend up the range. So, what do we think of the Skoda Elroq? Well, to use what is a pretty terrible food analogy, this is a Greggs sausage roll. It's comfortable, it's affordable, and if you look at it the right way, it's almost a little bit desirable. This certainly is a head purchase in a world where there are so many EVs vying for your heart.